Hey guys, this is Brad and Mike from Dallas Geek, and we are back with yet another Know Your Directors. Today we're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan.
I specifically pushed this one because he didn't make our top 10 horror directors list because somebody didn't want to include him.
To be fair, really only a couple of his movies count as horror.
And they're fantastic films.
But they're not, his work as a whole isn't enough to be able to call him a horror director, and those two did not have enough influence on the genre to make the list as best individual movies for the genre. Sorry. They're good, they just aren't fantastic, groundbreaking horror movies. So,
I hate him right now.
with that, the best place to start with M. Night Shyamalan has got to be his camera work. For his cinematography, he is a big fan of very calm and slow, still scenes, especially when they are dialogue scenes.
Yep.
He likes the camera to just sit. He likes the actors to be still, and almost to the point where it is pushing the limits of the difference between letting the scene breathe and letting the scene go stagnant.
Yep.
And that kind of has a lot to do when you're explaining the reception of his movies. A good example of a movie where it crossed the line into letting a scene go stagnant was The Happening. The Happening, because of the lack of intensity that his actors deliver the lines, because of the lack of interesting lines that were being delivered, that is where it pushed it into stagnant scenes.
Right.
But then you have a movie like Unbreakable, or a movie like The Sixth Sense, where the intensity that the actors were using, the passion in their voices, even when they were being calm and quiet.
You even see that in The Village a lot too. The scenes between Joaquin and Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yep.
A lot. Like there's that scene on the porch where they're just sitting on the porch for like 10 minutes talking. It's like a fantastic scene.
Well, I mean, even when Bryce Dallas Howard is walking towards the second half of the movie, where she's walking through the woods, she's very quiet. The scene is quiet.
Right.
There's just a certain intensity with her facial expressions, with her movements. The dialogue between her and Joaquin, while quiet, was very intense and precise.
Right.
It had purpose.
Right.
The scene was given extra purpose because of that, even though the camera work was very pulled back and still.
He doesn't ever waste a scene, and he lets his actors deliver the dialogue to deliver the scene. There's not a lot of extra movement going on. There's not a lot of extra background stuff going on. Like, he will literally just put who he wants in the scene, in that scene, and just be like, all right, go.
He's also, for those dialogue-heavy scenes, he's not that big of a fan of having a lot going on in the background.
No.
Whether it's background actors or it is any kind of interesting background. He tends to have his heavy dialogue scenes in some of the most uninteresting-looking places.
Right, but he does it so that it doesn't take away from what is going on between the actors in terms of the dialogue, because it's meant for you to focus in on that specifically.
So then another thing about his cinematography are on his intense scenes. He is a big fan of using wide-angle lenses for close-up shots. The Sixth Sense had some great examples of this, where, for example, when Haley Joel Osment's character was in the classroom and he was having a bit of a freak out, and the teacher got really close. The teacher and him were both very close up with wide lenses to distort their features, make everything seem so surreal and out of place. And then for Unbreakable, after the breaking of Mr. Glass's leg, he felt so depressed and so failed in his attempt to find a real hero when he was being pushed through on his wheelchair through the comic book store. The camera went very low and wide-angled so that his foot seemed so much bigger than the rest of his body, and everything was being so distorted. Another part of his wide-angle shots, even when it's not meant to distort, he likes to go very low to emphasize that there's something wrong and off-kilter with the scene or something about the world.
Or the character that he's emphasizing in the scene.
Exactly.
One thing he also likes to do is he really likes that zoom in shot with the wide, to kind of give you that sense of like distortion and there's something really off about what's going on.
Yeah, the forced perspective of trying to push the character away from the background while still giving some weird sense that something's going on with the scene.
He also does the same thing, except with the zoom out as well. You see that one a lot in The Village. When it's just Bryce Dallas and she's in the woods, you see that one a lot. You see that one a lot in The Happening.
Split used that a bit on some of the hallway scenes.
Yep.
Especially the hallway.
So damn good.
Especially some of the hallway scenes towards the end. He really used that technique to try to give the off-kiltered, very unhinged feel of the action that was happening in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
His color palette that he likes to use. The colors of the scene, he likes to be very subdued, while at the same time picking a specific color for the entire movie and then kind of painting that across every scene. So, for example, you saw in Unbreakable, he put a blue hue on every scene.
Yep.
No matter what the lighting of the scene was, he pushed some kind of blue hue across every color, the skin tones, the shadows, the highlights, everything had some hint of blue, and it got emphasized even more on the scenes that were meant to be kind of off kilter or a little just off in general, and was lightened, but it was always there.
Right.
The Village had a very orange hue that was pushed across all of its scenes.
Right.
After Earth had a green hue that was pushed across its scenes.
We don't need to talk about After Earth.
We try not to talk about that. The Last Airbender, once again, another one we try not to talk about, had a blue hue pushed across a lot of its scenes. You had The Sixth Sense, had a bit of an orange-red hue that was pushed. That, I think, was the only one that the hue slightly shifted from scene to scene, because I think that was still when he was finding his voice and the aesthetic that he preferred, so it wasn't as obvious as some of his other movies were.
Right.
What else? Dialogue and emphasis on the script.
Yes. That is one thing. He doesn't necessarily, I don't know if it's that he doesn't trust his actors, but he very much has a vision of like, this is the way that the scene was written, this is the way that I want to see it done, so this is the way we're going to do it.
Yeah, he believes in a very specific vision for his movies. He's kind of like Ridley Scott in that way, where he has planned everything out to such a detail that any level of improvising kind of takes away from the vision he had.
Right.
Which on the movies where it works, it really works because he had that vision. But it's clear he doesn't have that vision for every movie, not as clear and decisive.
But he has a vision.
Lady in the Water was one where it wasn't as clear, and you could tell that in some of the scenes, some of the way it's shot.
I did really like that movie, though.
I'm not saying it was bad, I'm just saying it was clear his vision wasn't as strong in that movie as some of the others.
Sure.
The Visit, he had a very clear vision for. In fact, that was actually one of the most redeeming qualities about it, and why it was able to redeem him as a director was because he has such a strong vision. I think that's a lot of what you need to know about going into an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
And the twist.
Oh, yes. He always has a twist. A lot of times it's one you don't see coming.
You don't see it on Unbreakable. You don't see it in
The Sixth Sense. You sort of see it in Split, but not. So Split has two twists.
Oh God, the
second twist you don't see coming.
Oh my God.
The first twist you kind of see coming, but it's not really that he's trying to hide that twist so much as the manner in which it was presented.
Right.
That was what he was trying to hide. And dang it, you got to go back to John McAvoy on that one. That I think if any other actor had been chosen, James McAvoy. I think if any other actor was chosen to be the lead on Split, other than James McAvoy, I don't think it would have worked as well.
No.
Because I think M. Night and James were able to find such a strong connection for that movie that is one of the few times where you can clearly see that M. Night understood his actor and was able to push his actor's limits more than I think even James thought was possible.
Yeah.
You saw that also with Bruce Willis with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, but this was a whole different level with James.
I was about to say, Bruce in those movies played it very straightforward. It was very dry. McAvoy just like went absolutely off the frickin' rails.
No, he was incredible, and in fact, I think we really need to do a standalone review of Split, tied in with, we're not going to say, but tied in
easy.
with another movie that he did, because there's so much that needs to be compared and connected. So,
I lost my shit.
I think we will need to do a whole separate video about that.
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely one of those twists that you never see coming, because you never think in a million years, and then
It happened.
You're like, I'm sorry, what?
Anything else you can think of that needs to be talked about what to expect when going into an M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Don't base what the movie is going to be off the trailer.
The biggest problem with M. Night Shyamalan movies is that his vision for the movie is meant to be taken as a whole, and trying to split any individual pieces of that into a trailer, you end up missing massive pieces of the story that it takes away from it. The two best examples of this were The Village, and honestly, I thought Split to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because his movies have a tendency to span multiple genres in such a subtle way,
Right.
from one movie to another.
Right.
And the problem is that while certain scenes within a movie can make it seem like the movie should be this genre, when you see it as a whole, you find out it's really this genre over here. Like The Village was put out through the trailers as a bit of a horror thriller.
Kind of an old school monster movie.
Yeah, and yet in reality, it was a romantic drama that happened to have a monster in it, but it wasn't even about that. So it was just a whole different thing. Split as well was shown more like a horror movie, but the reality of it was so much more psychological. It wasn't the kind of like horror slasher that it looked like.
No.
It was a true psychological thriller.
It was more of an unsettling horror, psychological. Exactly. Same thing with Signs. Signs was billed as
the alien movie of the week.
And instead it was a super deep, super religious, super when you lose your faith and this and that, like where do you turn to kind of film.
So, I mean, his movies just do not do well in bite size. You miss out on way too much, and you realize how many genres got blended together to make the genre the movie actually became, and it always seems disconnected. In fact, I don't think, other than The Sixth Sense, I don't think there was really any other movie that he's done where the trailer really gave you a good idea about what to expect when you went into the movie.
Agreed.
Anything else?
I think that covers it pretty well, in all honesty.
Well then, if you have any thoughts on M. Night Shyamalan, if you have a specific one of his movies that is your favorite and you just want to tell us why it's your favorite, please tell us down in the comments below. Be sure to like and share this video. The more people that can see it, the bigger the conversation it can get. So we would love to hear from as many of you as possible.
Love's a strong word.
I'd love to. I love talking to everybody out there on the internet.
Yeah, because there's always such great, deep, thought-provoking
I never said that it was always great. I just said I like talking to them. With that, this is Brad and Mike from Dallas Geeks saying, see ya.